If you look at a competitor who doesn't go and see their employees once a month, the employees might think that the managers don't care. What I always say to anyone who's managing someone, your employee, the person that works for you, has to know that you care. That personal connection is hugely important. It's a hard taskmaster making sure that engagement is there, but it's absolutely worth it. We reap the benefits of it because we have really low attrition. We have very high recommendation percentages. Generally, people actually like working here. They come here and they like working here. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's hard because we work hard and we move fast, but they like it because it's fast paced and it's a good environment.
Every entrepreneur starts their business full of dreams, whether it's innovating a better product or service, creating wealth, building a life to be proud of, or changing the world in some way, and engineers are no different. This podcast is about keeping your dreams alive when things get tough, because even the strongest technical skills can get overwhelmed by the endless demands of building a business. Whether you're an engineering consultancy, an industrial service provider, or a manufacturer, you'll hear actionable insights from peers on how they establish strong company cultures, systematized operations, leveraged sales and marketing to consistently generate customers, overcame financial challenges, faced increasing competition, and adapted to change to manage growth. Welcome to Engineering Success, a show for industrial and engineering leaders. I'm Rick Merton, and I've spent over 25 years building businesses and working with technical companies to solve their toughest business development challenges. Today's guest is Shannon Neyland, Group General Manager at Central Group. Shannon's career is proof that you don't need a fancy start to reach the top. He began as an industrial electrician in Queensland, working with his hands, getting dirty on job sites. Over 2 decades, he's built his way through some of the world's largest industrial companies, including ZTech Control Systems, Johnson Control, Downer New Zealand, and Sage Automation. Throughout his career, he's led large teams, overseen multi-million-dollar programs, and driven transformation across complex service organizations. His focus remains constant, building high-performing teams, improving asset performance, and creating practical strategies that turn innovation into measurable results. But here's what makes Shannon different. He's never lost his hands-on foundation. His combination of technical depth from the tools and strategic leadership from the boardroom gives him a rare perspective on what actually works when you're trying to scale a business. Now at Central Group, he's bringing his experience in building high-performing teams to drive the company's growth. Hi, Shannon. Welcome to the Engineering Success Podcast, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Rick. Great to be here. Looking forward to having a chat.
Great. Excellent. Can you give us a quick overview of the company and the portfolio that you oversee?
Quick overview of the Accenture Group is 3 separate companies: GPS Electrical Services, which is one of the largest independent electrical contractors in the country, quite a large footprint in Victoria and New South Wales. We have Spectrum Automation, which is a very high-end automation business, looking mostly after energy infrastructure and manufacturing. And then we have Machine Safety Australia, which is probably Australia's largest independent machine safety company with an extensive portfolio across a very wide range of industries. It's a good group, rapidly growing, but great to be part of. It's a great culture, a lot of energy.
You mentioned the last automation company has multiple industries, but is there a core industry that the group really focuses on, or industries?
Yes, predominantly the Centra Group really focuses on manufacturing. There's chemical manufacturing, pharmaceutical manufacturing, defense manufacturing, and the traditional food manufacturing. Realistically, we haven't found the need to diversify because we've got so much to do and so many great relationships with customers. Diversifying into wider utilities or into defense or transport, there hasn't been a need.
Given the 3 different companies, how do they fit together? What's the relationship? I'm trying to understand the cultural relationship between the 3 different companies. As an entity, how do they operate together to bring value to your clients?
We really look at the Centra Group as the ability to engineer from the ground up, deliver the large project, commission and install and automate that large project, and then maintain the equipment after it's installed, then manage the hazardous area dossiers, the functional safety, the machine safety. It's the entire life cycle of the asset we can look after, from very conception through to ongoing maintenance. Centra Group's individual companies are very specifically targeted on supporting those areas. In GPS, we have the engineering and the projects team. We have Spectrum Automation looking after the automation side. Then we have back to GPS in the service team looking after the life cycle of the asset. And then the machine safety and the hazardous area team looking after the safety and compliance side. It's a very holistic approach to assets in the electrical instrumentation and control environment.
You started as an industrial electrician in Queensland. Now you're a group general manager. That's a hell of a climb over somebody's career. What drove you to keep pushing to get to the top of the boardroom as you've now achieved?
Throughout my career, I've gone to various different events and conferences and listened to various different speakers. And one of them really resonated with me in the UK. And that person said, do what you do well all the time. Do more of what you're great at. Try and be a little bit less bad at what you're not good at. But if you're really good at something, do more of that. They gave the analogy of Usain Bolt. He wasn't a great footballer, but geez, he could run fast. I've really tried to focus on things that I do well. And the things that I do well, I can create great teams with a great culture, and I can talk to customers. So I continue to do that. The journey from being a Sparky to the group general manager, it's really been, I want to learn. I'm always curious, and I want to help people. That need to drive helping people has always been there, whether that be helping the customer maintain their asset or helping an apprentice learn that if you pivot over into PLC, you'll have a different career, or if you're a great electrical engineer, maybe you could do project management as well. Helping people throughout their career do different things has really driven me. That's not specifically because of my intent, but naturally just continued to allow me to manage larger and larger and larger teams. When I was coming over to Centra, or GPS as it was then, I wasn't after being the group general manager. I just wanted to come and be part of the team and be part of the culture.
Was there a specific moment in time, or was it an aspiration always that rather than being the person doing the work and being the Sparky on the job, that you want to run the job and then progress through to management, or did it organically happen in your career?
I think it organically happened because of my upbringing. For one reason or another, because of my parents, I naturally started to take charge of jobs pretty early out of my apprenticeship. When I finished my apprenticeship at the sugar mill in Mackay, I went straight out into the coal mines, working for a contractor, doing shutdowns on dragline. Shutdowns on draglines are very, very unique environments where you have 30 or 40 sparkies, hundreds of fitters and boilermakers. It's all go all the time, 12-hour shifts, and you're working very hard. What you need is really clear communication as to who's doing what, where, and when. Otherwise, you miss stuff and they'll close off a section that you can't get back to for a couple of months. I saw the leading hands managing the crews. They were the older leading hands. They were more experienced, but they were missing things and they weren't communicating as efficiently as I would like. I didn't really ask permission. I just started telling people what to do or suggesting things. Then probably 6 months out of my apprenticeship, so when I was 22 or 23, they basically said, you're very bossy, why don't you run the team and see how you go? And so I did, and it went quite well. I was running 30 Sparkies on day shift on the shutdowns from then. It continued to snowball so that I was running crews, but it all came down to communication and wanting to make sure that everyone had things to do.
As I said in my introduction, you had a really solid career in big name companies of global teams, I expect with reasonably big budgets and big teams. But then you jumped to GPS, what it was then, and now Centra Group, which is very much a growth stage company. I'm just interested in terms of what drove you to make that leap from large corporates, multinationals, national businesses to a growth company.
It was the opportunity to create something. In all of the multinationals that I've worked in, all very well established, been around for a very long time. It had been created. My time back in ZTech Control Systems in the UK, I was employee number 20 and I helped build a thing over there. When I started, I was a Sparky. When I finished, I was their operations director. We went from 20 employees up to 250 or 300. It was a great journey to be part of. Basically, I learned most of the things that I do now in that company from a few people, and still very thankful for them for giving me that opportunity. I wanted to build a thing again, and now I have the opportunity, instead of being part of that building the thing, and now get an opportunity to lead the building of the thing using the strategy and techniques that I've learned over the last 20, 25 years to build something that is unique and fantastic, amazing. The culture is different. The pace to customer is different. The appetite and attitude in the teams is different. It's just a really fun place to work. It's hard, but it's fun as well. It's a lot of fun.
Just to go a bit deeper on that and leveraging your big company experience, and obviously, as you've alluded to, ZTech Control Systems and the growth there, you're trying to replicate that exponential growth at GPS and Centra Group, which is obviously it's a massive ask and a huge undertaking. When you look at the opportunities in front of you when you join the group, where do you decide to start? What's the first step in driving that growth strategy to fruition?
I always like to say you eat the elephant one bite at a time, and we are trying to create something fantastic here. But where you start is with the end in mind. What do we want to achieve in the 5-year time frame? We have to put a sensible time frame on things. So we picked 5 years because that's a relatively easy thing to compartmentalize. It's not too far in the future. It's not too close. We wanted to create a group of companies that really serviced our existing customer base really very well across their entire life cycle of assets. Then we just said, okay, what do we need to do that? We need to have an engineering bit, a service bit, an automation bit, a projects bit, a safety bit. There might be some other bits that come along the way, but we really started with the strategy in mind. And what's that first step? For the owners, Brad and Rob, the first step was getting someone who had that experience, which was me. Very fortunate that they picked me. Then work with them to create that vision of what that next 5-year journey will look like. At the end of the 5 years, there'll be another 5-year journey, or probably at year 4, we'll look at the 5-year journey because we like to plan in advance. But yeah, there's a lot of planning and a lot of thought and a lot of conversations. We were in the throes of making an acquisition. We'll probably be expanding into some other states relatively soon. There's all sorts of things we can do in terms of different markets. But again, we have a pretty clear strategy on what we want to do for the 5-year, which is that group of companies that really look after our great customer base in manufacturing very well across their entire life cycle. We know that if we just do that well, then we will continue to grow until we decide that we'll do something different.
Amazing how simple, not easy, but how simple business is. If you do good work for your clients, bring value to them, they'll look after you and you can continue to grow together.
That's all we've done, Rick, really, to drive the growth that we have. To take a step back and look at Brad and Rob's journey, the two owners, they did an amazing job to create the size of the company they did on their enthusiasm and will and skill all by themselves. But to really scale an organization, you need a little bit of structure, you need a little bit of process, you need a little bit of this, that, and the other. But it's very simple. Treat your customers well, do good work, have a great culture, and you'll continue to flourish.
As I said, simple, but not easy. But just to go a little bit deeper, because you alluded to a few different things around processes, system, culture, etc., to start the journey of growth. When you've now been in the business for 11 months, when you first started to implement the growth strategy after you've done the strategies you said, was there first things that you started to look at? Somebody was joining a company that wanted to drive down a growth strategy. Tactically, where do you recommend you started? More specifically, where did you start that process internally with Centra Group?
I looked at two things. I looked at our existing customer base and the market penetration that we had across the various areas of the business. Did that with a couple of colleagues. That created a matrix that told us where to go next. If you're trying to grow a company, it's easy to do more with your existing customers. And we have a lot of very, very good customers. We have some pretty good customers, and then we have some okay customers. Our plan in terms of customer and growth is to find out the customers that we do a lot with and then do more, and find out the customers that we do a little bit more that have very similar relationships and very similar processes to our really great customers, and then do more for them. First part was look at our customers, but Probably the most important part is looking at the team. What skill sets do we have in the team? What are the gaps in the team? What are the leadership gaps, technical gaps, capability gaps, training gaps? There's a bunch of things that you need to look at within your team first. I have a very boring saying, but everybody here really believes in the pillars. There's 5 things that make a business work. There's nothing else really that comes into it. That's health and safety, training and development, culture, customers, and finance. Those 5 areas really define a strategy, really define people's goals. Aligning people's goals with the strategy of the business is incredibly important to give the people the connection to the business, because otherwise, what are they working for? Using those 5 pillars, we looked at everyone internally, what their gaps were in all those areas, what the opportunities were in all those areas, what they wanted to do in all of those areas, then set, it seems ridiculously simple, but just setting goals. We had PDPs, we had the professional development plans for every single employee under the 5 pillars, aligned with the goals of the department and the organization and the group under the 5 pillars, so that everyone in every department is aligned to their department, is aligned to the group, and is aligned ultimately to me and my goals. So everyone in the organization can see my goals. Just to summarize, 2 things that we looked at were our customers and what our customer matrix was, and our people and what the opportunities were with our people.
Can we just dig a little bit deeper into that principle of linking group strategy to personal development? Because as you said, it's relatively easy when you explain it again with the professional development programs.
But it's incredibly difficult to do. I've seen lots of companies do it very poorly.
And that's exactly where I was going to go. Most companies struggle with this, but how do you actually take it from once they've got a PDP? Because fundamentally, that's not that difficult to create for each person, but actually then using them to drive performance, to manage expectations, to deliver the growth that you're trying to achieve. How do you take it from a theoretical, we get this is just the theme of the company today and it'll change tomorrow, to actually something that is ingrained in culture and becomes the driving force of the growth strategy?
A lot of the development plans that I've seen in the past have really only focused on the people and their skills, and it forgets the fact that they're members of an organization. In the last 2 or 3 organizations I've worked in, there's been a very clear focus on how do we improve your skills. For electricians, are we teaching you a new testing course? Are we doing a hazardous area course? For control systems engineers, it was let's learn a new SCADA or a new PLC type or a new version of this, that, or the other. It always resonated with me that you're part of an organization. Training is one part of you in the organization, and it's a really important part to you. But the employment contract gives you contribute to the company, and the company contributes to you. I use that basic mindset to go, oh, okay, well, what does the company need from the employee? Well, they need health and safety. They need them to develop, but they also need to make sure that there's a great culture, because there's huge benefits of having a great culture. I mean, you don't have a business without one. You need the customers, and money makes things go around. Use that holistic approach across the organization to really enable a connection with the people and the organization. If I'd have just done training and development, then I wouldn't have the opportunity to talk to my service engineers and service technicians about the number of hazard reports that they're putting in. I wouldn't have an opportunity to ask them, what are you doing for the culture of the business? Because it's contributing to the culture is everybody's responsibility. It's not just you turn up and hope there's a great culture. You have to work at it. I work every day at the culture. I'll go and empty the bins if the bins need emptying, because generally people think other people do the bins. Well, yeah, I'm the other person. I'll do the bins. I'll clean the coffee machine. I don't mind, because people see me doing that. They do that as well. What that means is, oh, if the group general manager empties the bins, geez, maybe I should empty the bins too. Since I've been here, people continuing to perpetuate the great culture. I've got to say, it was built on an amazing culture that the 2 owners created here. I'm just reaping the benefits of it, to be honest. But we have put on quite a few people since I've joined, and the culture has remained really strong with the incredible growth that we've had from 40 to 210 now over the last sort of 10 months.
It's not unusual for many of the people listening and companies that we work with, where there's a head office like there is with your company, and there's lots of staff out in the field, and they won't see you, as per your example, taking out the rubbish. In fact, you may not even see many of them more than infrequent visits to sites or when they come back to head office. How do you facilitate that cultural drive and that connection back to the strategy of the company for people who are fundamentally at arm's length to the business on a day-to-day basis because they're embedded ongoing at a client's site?
It's by far and away the most difficult thing when you get the electricians, all of our field staff who are either embedded or working around in different project areas, making sure that they know what's happening in the organization. They talk to someone on a regular basis about safety, about their development plan. To be honest, the only thing you can do is do more of it. Continue to try and try. Don't communicate in one different medium, communicate in multiple different mediums, find different ways to engage people. Some of the things we do, we send out newsletters, but we also post things to people's houses, given their consent, of course. We put little things in their payslips about, did you know this? We have frequent site meetings. So every manager who manages a person in the organization has to see them once a month, physically has to see them, which is difficult, but it's necessary to drive a great culture, because if you don't see the person, they think you've forgotten about them. Same as customers. But if you don't go and see your customers, they think you don't care. You do, but you just haven't seen them. It's really difficult and it takes a lot of effort, but by crikey, it's worth it. Because if you look at a competitor who doesn't go and see their employees once a month and talk to them about them, their managers in competitive organizations, the employees might think that the managers don't care. What I always say to anyone who's managing someone, your employee, the person that works for you, has to know that you know about them, has to know that you care. Do you know how many kids they have? Do you know where they go on holiday, what beer they drink, where they did their apprenticeship or degree, depending on what flavour they are? You have to know, and that personal connection is hugely important. People out on remote sites, it's really hard, but we work at it. It's a constant grind. I'm going out to sites all the time. We have our health and safety guy going out to sites, creating events at sites where we have multiple people, purely to drive engagement. It's a hard taskmaster, making sure that engagement is there, but it's absolutely worth it. We reap the benefits of it because we have really low attrition. We have very high recommendation percentages. Generally, people actually like working here. They come here and they like working here. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's hard because we work hard and we move fast, but they like it because it's fast paced and it's a good environment.
We talk about marketing and branding on the inside. The most important person or stakeholder to market the business to is actually staff, not clients or customers, as you've alluded to. If you get the staff aligned on the strategy, they sell the business both to future employees and future customers for you.
It's more prominent and more important for a business like ours because we do have people embedded. We have maintenance people, we have service people, we have project people out in all sorts of different places. They're the best way to find new opportunity. If they're out on site talking to the maintenance manager on site or the capital delivery manager on site or the quality manager on site, and they say, oh, yeah, I'll put in a hazard report about that thing over there. It's looking a bit old. That conversation can lead to a $500,000 upgrade. That's why everyone has a customer goal. Doesn't matter if you're an electrician or whether you're a business development person. What are you going to do? How are you going to make sure that customers know that we're a great place to partner with?
Is there a before and after story of someone who really didn't understand or didn't really see the vision that you're trying to bring to Central Group, or in one of your other clients, ZTech Control Systems, for example, that also had quite stellar growth? Is there an example of someone specific you could talk about who didn't understand their role in strategy and then over time they did? And I'd love to understand what changed. Was their attitude to the work or their commitment to the business? Just broadly, what you did and what changed, if there is a specific example.
Change is very difficult for some people. Some people don't like change. They like things exactly the way they are, and that's great. Some people love change. What I found back in the UK when I was doing my degree, I analysed the ZTech Control Systems business because I wanted to continue to drive growth. What I found through various different means is a real connection between the alignment of a manager and a team in terms of their risk appetite. If you have a risk-taking manager and a risk averse team. Say, for example, you've got an accounts and finance team. They're generally risk averse people. They want to make sure everything's perfect before they do things, because you can't really make mistakes in accounting and finance. But if you have that being led by a risk taking manager who not really into the detail and just wants to crack on, the teams don't really gel with the manager. Generally, you tend to find that you have attrition within that team. The opposite is true. If you have a risk-taking team who wants to do fun stuff and take over the world, and they have a very risk-averse manager, then the team will just hate it. Again, you'll get attrition in the team. One of the things I did in the UK is to align the team's overall appetite for risk with the manager's appetite for risk. We have in various parts of this organization and other organizations different flavors of risk appetite. In a previous organization, we had an incredibly risk-taking manager and brilliant, technically amazing, a savant, but he was incredibly risk-taking, and the detail that his team needed as we were building that team wasn't there. It was creating misalignment with the team because the manager wanted to grow super fast, but there weren't the systems and processes there, and was half building them along the way. What I did there is we had a conversation, and basically I said, look, you're amazing at certain things, but you're not amazing at other things. How about we get you to continue, like I said before, focus on the things that you're amazing at, and let's get someone else to do the things that you're less amazing at. We'll see how we go. I made that change. It was very, very difficult for that person at the time. Ultimately, what's happened is that team has accelerated. I made that change when they were about 12. They're about 23 now. I put in a new manager who had a slightly less appetite for risk, still risk appetite, but slightly less on the spectrum of go nuts, go crazy. The alignment of the risk appetite with the team really gelled. It really clicked. What happened was the team was accelerating forward, but it was stumbling every now and then. It was slipping gears, if you like. What happened when we put in a different manager with a different risk appetite that aligned more with his team, the cogs meshed and they really accelerated. They actually put the pedal to the metal. They started to fly.
We've started by making sure the team is aligned and driving towards a strategy. The next step in driving growth is really building the high-performing teams, which is what you just alluded to. You took them from possibly not functioning optimally to function optimally to then driving growth. You talked about the alignment of risk appetite with the leader and the team. Are there other secrets that you look at? What could be a really functioning well team, but to raise that bar up to drive into a high-performing team? What's your secret around that?
Each team is different. Each interaction with each team member is different. The relationships between the team members are different. So how do I create high-performing teams? I analyze the team first. Then I look at what the outcome we want is. Same that I did with the business when I came on. Look at the team, look at the markets, look at what we need to do, then just create a path. It's deceptively simple. Realistically, there's inflection points within businesses. You have to know when those inflection points are. A business department that's got 10 people in it needs to be structured one way. As soon as you tick over to the right volume of a type of work, then you need to change the structure of the business so that you have, instead of one person leading everything, you have a delivery lead or a project manager or a team lead. You grow that team, and then there'll be another inflection point and another inflection point. The real trick is knowing when those inflection points are, and also making sure that the corporate side of the business keeps up. If you continue to expand and you don't put on more either administrators or put in AI to assist or put in more finance people, then the business will slow down because it'll have a bottleneck in certain areas. You also can't expand those corporate functions too quickly because you don't have a business to pay for them. Some of the things that we talk about constantly is every department, what's the next thing it needs? What are the next 5 things it needs? It's just a detailed view of every single business. As soon as I know that there's an inflection point coming, then we'll start talking about it and start planning for it. Sometimes you get inflection points that are much quicker because you get a massive opportunity and you have to pivot. We've recently had one of those where we've had to pivot and expand our manufacturing capability very, very quickly. But we pivoted, We had the foresight to know that it was a potential. We were able to pivot incredibly quickly. That really is important when you're in a business that's rapidly growing, and you must be agile. The decision-making process has to be very, very quick. There's no secret sauce. It's just good knowledge of the business, good knowledge of those inflection points.
Maybe that's the secret sauce. But just to go a little bit deeper on this, I expect this possibly goes back all the way to the story you told us about when you first joined the workforce. Very quickly, your manager elevated you to a leadership position. When you've gone through the team, and let's use Centra as an example, I assume you're constantly looking to identify someone who you could elevate into a leadership role, or that is a leader in the team, or could potentially drag the team down. Assuming you did that, how do you do that? Are there specific questions or behaviours that you try to look for to identify who could lift the team or who could bring the team down, so that you're trying to build the optimum team structure? This isn't about how do you work people out of the business. That may be an end result, but fundamentally, if you're trying to amplify people's strengths, then you're trying to align them to bring them to the forefront.
I can only perpetuate the growth of the business if we have great talent inside the business. So the first step is making sure that we have great talent inside the business and knowing who they are. Each one of the heads of my departments, we have a succession plan. It's pretty simple succession plan. You identify your key performers. And across various areas of my business, various departments, I know exactly who the key people are. The stars, if you like, the people that are going to be the next leaders in the future of the business. Those people have been identified. We have a constantly revolving process where we meet every couple of months to talk about those rising stars. All of those rising stars mentored by one of the leadership team. You can't mentor your own person. So I mentor 3 people, rising stars within the business, and the other heads mentor other people within the business. We're constantly evolving the challenges that we give our people to keep them hungry for that next step. We might not be able to give them exactly the thing that they want, but we can give them alternatives that keep them really engaged and really passionate about. If they want to solve hard problems, great. The leadership team is very clear on making sure that we have engagement from those stars. We're very conscious of who they are. If we have people that don't perform well, I always believe in being kind. Just ask them what's going on. If someone's acting weirdly or strangely, just having a conversation with them. I've done it here a couple of times. There was a person that was very abrasive to everybody all the time, and got to a point where I intervened and said, "What's going on? This isn't normal behavior for a person." It was a very difficult conversation for them to engage in, but I just came at it from a place of curiosity and kindness and just went, "Is everything okay?" They told me a story that's led me to know that they weren't okay and they needed help. I think they really appreciated the fact that we actually cared enough to ask them a question. Now, I'm not going to say that he's transformed. He's still a bit grumpy, but he's significantly less abrasive, all because we just asked a question and said, "How are you?" With high performers, there's a succession plan, and we make sure that they're really engaged all the time. With people who are performing differently, I won't say low performers because everyone performs in different levels. But if people aren't meeting our expectations, then we ask the question, are the expectations right? Have we given them all the things that they need to do to achieve those expectations? Are they okay? We really approach it from a place of common sense, courtesy, and kindness.
We look at it as do they get their job? Do they want their job? Do they have all the capabilities, skills, tools to be able to do their job? If you can align on those 3 things, you can find where the gap is.
The strategic pillars really help with that. It really helps the drive, the attention that the managers pay.
We talked about asset performance, and I'm talking about the assets that you create and then manage for your clients. And you've talked a lot about improving asset performance as a key focus in your career, but also for Centra Group. For engineers and people listening, what does that actually mean on a day-to-day basis? Can you give me a specific example, again, either where you are today or historically in your career, where you've helped improve an asset's performance and what that achieved?
Asset performance can mean lots of things depending on your asset. If you're a water company, it means one thing. If you're a manufacturing company, it means another. I'll stick to what Centra's core business is, manufacturing. We had a manufacturing customer, still have them, that had a communications faults. We didn't know what it was. The plant was tripping all the time. They didn't really do very much maintenance on their network infrastructure. They were great at maintaining their assets, so the variable speed drives and the motors and the instruments. That was fantastic. All the things that connected them to make them talk to each other, they didn't really look after those. What happens over time is they degrade ultimately. It's all sort of copper and aluminium wires, so they degrade over time. Those communications devices are plugged into things that have little slots in either racks or PLCs or drives or whatever they are. Effectively, you need to look at them every now and then, pull the card out, blow it off, and put it. Sometimes it's as simple as that. But they didn't have any maintenance at all on their network. Plant was tripping constantly. They were there for 3 days waiting for the fault to occur. The site manager called me and said, "You guys need to sort this out." I went, "Well, we'll do our best to help." We got to a point where they were waiting for a fault to occur, and I went, "Well, force the fault. Start that," because every time they started that motor, the fault occurred. They were waiting 3 hours for the sequence of the manufacturing plant for that. It was faulting every 3 hours, and every 3 hours they'd furiously run around and try and find the problem. And then the fault would go away. Long story short, we started forcing the fault. We found it in about 2 or 3 hours. It turned out that it was a small communications card on a small variable speed drive in a small area of the plant. But the way that the communications network worked, it was a big daisy chain. It was all in series, not parallel. If one went down, the whole lot went down. Very, very difficult to fault find. But they didn't maintain that bit of the infrastructure at all. That wasn't really an asset on their asset register. Well, it certainly was after we finished. So they decided to upgrade. What we also found was they had obsolete PLCs, they had obsolete communications network, they had obsolete almost everything. It worked tremendously, very, very robust equipment, but they needed to replace it. So what we did was we gave them an upgrade path over the next 3 years to upgrade that entire network and I helped them write a maintenance plan for their communication side of the network, so that not only did they have asset visibility of their actual asset, but all the things that connected those assets as well. Not the wires that transmitted the power, but it was the communications network, the Ethernet, that was helping them make the whole plant work. Fault finding, not maintaining an asset. Turns out they didn't know that it was an asset. Long story to the end is now they maintain their assets. Now they have complete visibility of what those assets are. Now they have a very, very robust communication network on site without a bunch of obsolete PLCs that ran everything, which was a massive risk because they were out of support for years. That's a really common story across manufacturing sites that are 15 to 20 years old. The PLCs that were 15 years ago are out of support. The communication networks are out of support. All of the switchboards these days, if you upgrade a switchboard, you have to replace it because generally it's non-compliant with arc flash, so you have to upgrade it. There's a huge, vast array of customers that'll have relatively old assets that are 20, 25 years old, haven't seen the light of day, haven't really been maintained, and just need a little love.
If there was one system that you could implement from your large corporate days into a growth stage company like Centra Group, what would that be? What's the most valuable system that you think large corporates have that could help drive growth in a fast-growing company?
My answer today is very different from my answer a few years ago. Today, my answer will be a great project management ERP system, making sure that you have a single source of truth for the data and doing something with the data. For the last 2 weeks, I've spent most of my time trawling through reports out of our various different systems, smushing them together in Power BI to create dashboards to give us visibility of what's happening in the business, to give us better granularity, better speed to the data. The single thing that multinationals have that smaller corporations sometimes don't have is a great ERP.
It's a bit of an irony that things are working when things are breaking, because you're pushing all your systems and processes to the point where they were designed for what got you to where you are today, but they're not necessarily going to get you to where you want to be tomorrow. You mentioned earlier the 5-year plan of Centra Group, and what does success look like in 5 years for Centra Group?
If you've got an understanding of what we've done from when I joined to now, you'll get a flavour of what's going to happen. It's probable that we'll be in most states. It's probable that we will be in different industries because we'll be dragged, not because we're pushing. as we continue to grow our staff numbers, more of our staff will be coming from different industries. It's likely that we will get dragged into pharmaceuticals. It'll be likely that we'll get dragged into energy. We'll get dragged into water, a bunch of other things, just because we've got more people that have some really good skill sets in those because they're really good and we try and perpetuate the culture. Then the customers that worked with those people in the past will want to still work with them in the future. That's not us specifically targeting specific customers through people. It's just the natural way it goes. We will continue to do the different types of work we do, looking at the whole life cycle of the asset. Some of the ways that we're packaging up different bits and pieces is new to customers. It's a natural progression and they're going, oh, that's a good idea. Let's do some of that. We're seeing impacts already on that front. We'll continue to have a larger machine safety team. We'll continue to have a larger automation team just because we continue to employ really specifically for culture and attitude. We accept that you can only come into the team if you have a level of skill. The thing that sets people apart isn't the level of skill, it's their attitude. If we have a bunch of people who have a great attitude, customers see that, customers want more of that. Going back to the 5 pillars, the 5 pillars are really structured internally and externally. The first 3 of those 5 pillars, the health, HSEQ, training and development, culture, really focus on the people. If you get your people right, and the customers and the money look after themselves, it is absolutely simple. I've seen it in the last 20 years of business. You get the people right and everything else falls into line. 5 years will be bigger.
When you think about that journey from where you are today to where you want to get to in 5 years' time, what's the one thing that you've had to do to make sure you get there?
Continue to be humble. We're on a huge growth journey. We're going to have some wins. We're going to have some losses, but you can't get high off your own supply, to take in the NWA's quote. It's really important to make sure that you stay humble. I'm just a sparky. Yes, I've got a career. I've worked for various different companies, but I'm just a sparky. I'm going to continue to remain just a sparky. I might not wear high vis every day and pull in cable and terminate cable and fix stuff on site, but I'll still empty the bins. I'll still clean the coffee machine because if it needs doing, I'll do it. Staying humble will be one of the big successes that we will have to keep true to enable our success. You can't get too carried away from yourself. I've seen that in different organizations. Stay humble and stay hungry. You'll get to where you want to be.
You spent 20 years building capability in others. When you eventually step back, what would you like people to say about how you've led them?
I would like people to think that I helped them. Throughout my career, I've been very fortunate to help a bunch of people. There's a guy I'm going to see in the UK who was an apprentice and now he's the commercial director for an organization. He had a very difficult apprenticeship. He had a very difficult upbringing, lots and lots of challenges along the way, but he's come good. I helped a bunch of people along the way. Is the thing that I'd like people to think that I contributed to an organization.
I've met you a few times, Shannon, and both the humble attitude and the desire to help people has come through in many of the conversations. Shannon, thank you for sharing your story and really being quite candid in how you've approached the realities of bringing your large corporate experience into growth stage businesses and where you're going with that. I know the concept of those 5 pillars will be really beneficial for our listeners, and they'll be able to take some powerful lessons about connecting strategy to people and building performing teams and leveraging assets to drive growth in their company. Once again, I really thank you for your time and your insights.
No, I appreciate it, Rick. It's been great. It's been a trip down memory lane, but also a trip down the strategy lane, which I really do enjoy. And those 5 pillars have been very useful to me. Hopefully they'll be useful to others as well.
That's great. Thank you. To all our listeners, if you found value in today's conversation, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or visit my website, insideoutgroup.com.au. Remember, building a sustainable business is a journey, not a destination. The insights that Shannon shared today about developing people alongside its strategy are exactly what separates companies that scale successfully from those that don't. I'm Rick Merton, and thank you for listening to Engineering Success.